What if I told you that right now in the year 2025, a quiet hill in Indonesia may hold the key to rewriting everything we know about human history? Beneath the surface of Gunung Padang, researchers claim lies a pyramid not thousands, but 28,000 years old. A structure that predates the Great Pyramids of Egypt by more than 20 millennia. Imagine that for a moment. It suggests that long before recorded history, before agriculture and cities, our distant ancestors may have commanded knowledge and technology that rivals or even surpasses what we have today. And yet, the story does not stop there. Whispers of cover-ups and suppression have haunted every new discovery at this site. Global elites, academic institutions, and skeptical scientists have all been accused of working tirelessly to bury the truth. Could it be because this site holds something more than stones? Reports describe strange resonance as stones humming at certain frequencies, underground voids that could conceal chambers, perhaps even artifacts that might unlock interstellar secrets. What exactly is being hidden here, and why? Could Gunung Padang be the smoking gun, the undeniable proof that an advanced civilization thrived in the Ice Age, only to be wiped away in a forgotten cataclysm? If this pyramid is real, the consequences are staggering. Human history, as we've been taught, would collapse in an instant. No longer could we claim that civilization began just 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. Instead, we would have to confront the possibility that humanity has risen, fallen, and risen again, cycling through ages of brilliance and destruction. Think about it. What if this discovery is not just about the past, but about the future too? Advanced knowledge suppressed for centuries. Perhaps free energy hidden within those resonant stones, or ancient sciences deliberately erased to protect modern power. If they are right, if Gunung Padang truly is 28,000 years old, then everything we know is wrong. So stay with me, take a deep breath, and let your mind wander through this mystery. Because tonight we are peeling back the veil of history together. And if you enjoy these explorations into forbidden truths and lost civilizations, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and join me every week as we uncover the secrets that others would rather keep hidden. High in the misty highlands of West Java, Indonesia, lies a hill that locals have long called Gunung Padang. At first glance, it appears ordinary, just another rise in the lush tropical landscape. But appearances can be deceiving, can't they? What seems like nothing more than a hill conceals a staggering secret beneath its soil. For decades, researchers and villagers alike have whispered of something extraordinary, and now modern technology has begun to confirm their suspicions. Beneath the surface, scans have revealed carefully arranged terraces, underground chambers, and layers of construction unlike anything nature alone could produce. Radiocarbon dating has shocked the scientific world by suggesting that the deepest foundations may be as old as 28,000 years. Let that sink in for a moment. That would mean this site predates Egypt's Great Pyramid by over 20 millennia, rewriting the very timeline of human civilization. The scale is breathtaking. Gunung Padang spans more than 150,000 square meters, with basalt columns arranged in patterns too precise to be explained away as random. Some stones hum with resonance when struck, echoing through the earth like an ancient instrument, while underground voids suggest hidden chambers waiting to be explored. Is this really the work of hunter-gatherers as textbooks would have us believe? Or is it the footprint of a forgotten civilization, one whose knowledge was buried by time and catastrophe? In the verdant heart of West Java, where mist curls around the hills at dawn and the forests hum with cicadas, lies Gunung Padang, a place steeped in myth and mystery. For the Sundanese people, this hill has never been just another rise in the land. It has always been a sacred space, whispered about in stories that blend history, spirituality, and the supernatural. These myths, passed down from one generation to the next, do not merely entertain. They frame Gunung Padang as a site of power, a mountain of enlightenment, and one that connects the earthly world with realms beyond human comprehension. But what exactly do these legends say, and why do they matter so deeply to the mystery of the pyramid? One of the most famous stories centers on a legendary king, Prabu Siliwangi, the semi-mythical ruler of the Pajajaran kingdom. According to Sundanese folklore, the king sought to build a grand palace at Gunung Padang, but there was a condition. The palace had to be completed in a single night. So he called upon supernatural forces to help him, spirits, divine beings, perhaps even the gods themselves. Stones were hauled, terraces rose, chambers took shape, and the palace began to gleam under the moonlight. Yet, as dawn approached, the work remained unfinished. Whether the king was thwarted by jealous spirits, divine intervention, or the sheer impossibility of the task, the result was the same. When the first rays of sunlight struck the mountain, the palace froze in its half-built state, leaving behind a series of terraces and stone arrangements that still crown Gunung Padang today for the villagers who have long lived in the shadow. Of the hill, this story has always explained the site's enigmatic design. The unfinished terraces are not random piles of stone, but the remains of a supernatural effort, halted by forces beyond human control. The implication is profound. Gunung Padang is not just a place of stones, it is a monument to ambition, failure, and divine will. It embodies the tension between human aspiration and cosmic law, but that is not the only myth woven into its slopes. Other Sundanese tales describe Gunung Padang as a sanctuary of enlightenment, a place built by divine kings to channel cosmic energy. The terraces, according to some traditions, are lined with celestial bodies, serving as stairways to wisdom. Shamans and spiritual leaders have long treated the site as a pundan, barundak, a sacred stepped terrace where offerings are made to ancestral spirits and deities. Even today, villagers leave flowers, incense, and prayers at the stones, believing that they resonate with subtle energies capable of healing sickness, granting visions, or guiding the pure of heart. Imagine that stones not as lifeless rock, but as vessels of memory vibrating with the voices of ancestors. These myths do more than elevate Gunung Padang into legend. They connect it to global themes of sacred mountains, divine construction, and unfinished monuments. In Mesopotamia, myths tell of ziggurats linking heaven and earth. In South America, the Inca spoke of mountains as living beings, guardians of the people. In the biblical tradition, the Tower of Babel was halted by divine will, much like King Siliwangi's palace. Why do so many cultures share stories of great constructions cut short by forces beyond mortal hands? Could these be echoes of a deeper truth, that ancient peoples preserved memories of cataclysm, failed attempts, or forgotten technologies and encoded them into myth? For the Sundanese, Gunung Padang's myths are not abstract. They are lived and felt. Elders tell of how the site served as a refuge during great floods, a place where survivors gathered, just as Noah did in the Ark or Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh. These stories mirror flood myths from across the globe, yet remain rooted in West Java's soil. They suggest continuity between human memory and geological upheaval, between myth and stone. Skeptics often dismiss such folklore as quaint superstition. Yet, in many cases, myth is history's camouflage. Oral traditions carry fragments of truth, compressed and stylized over centuries, waiting to be decoded. What if King Silawangji's tale of building a palace overnight was not about magic, but about an advanced technology long forgotten? Perhaps the stones were moved in ways we no longer understand through resonance, sound, or magnetism. What if the unfinished palace is simply the remnants of an ancient project interrupted by cataclysm, its memory later recast in mythological language? This is why the Sundanese myths matter. They keep alive the possibility that Gunung Padang is more than geology. They invite us to see the terraces not as accidents of nature, but as intentional creations bound to human or even superhuman purpose. They urge us to question who built this place, why here, and for what reason. In a world where so much of our past remains veiled, these stories may be among the last fragile threads connecting us to truths buried under 28,000 years of earth and silence. Across the world, ancient flood myths resound like echoes of a forgotten catastrophe. From Noah's Ark in the Middle East to Utnapishtim in Mesopotamia, to Manu in India and Deucalion in Greece, the story is always the same and overwhelming. Deluge wipes out civilizations, and only a chosen few survive to rebuild. The Sundanese people of West Java are no exception, and at the heart of their own myths lies Gunung Padang. Here, the hill is not simply a relic of stone, but a place of refuge, a sanctuary where the survivors of an ancient flood gathered to wait out destruction. Could this be coincidence? Or are we hearing fragments of a single global memory encoded into countless traditions? In local accounts, Gunung Padang is described as a Pandan Barandak, a stepped sanctuary used in ancient times for spiritual practice. It is said to be a mountain of enlightenment, a place where shamans and priests connected with the cosmos. According to these traditions, the terraces were not only for ritual, but for survival. When floodwaters rose, people climbed the mountain, bringing offerings to the spirits of the land, hoping to secure protection. The stones were not just functional, but sacred, aligned with energies that linked earth and sky. What makes this extraordinary is how closely these myths mirror geological reality. Around 12,000 years ago, during the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose more than 120 meters worldwide. Vast stretches of land, including Sundaland, the ancient continental shelf linking Indonesia to Asia, were swallowed by the sea. If Gunung Padang was already a place of power, high on its volcanic plug, it would indeed have served as a refuge for those fleeing rising waters. Could it be that the myth of the flood, preserved for generations, is in fact a cultural memory of this dramatic geological event? The idea of Gunung Padang as a site of enlightenment runs even deeper. Local healers and shamans describe the stones as alive with energy, vibrating with frequencies that can heal, induce visions, or connect humans to ancestral spirits. Pilgrims come here to meditate, to leave offerings of incense and flowers, to sit upon the stones and listen for the hum of the earth. These practices, rooted in animist tradition, suggest that the site was always more than a construction. It was a spiritual machine. One could even argue it was designed that way. Modern researchers have tested these claims and found something remarkable. When struck, some stones emit resonant tones at frequencies that align with ancient musical scales, and even modern A4 tuning at 440 Hz. Imagine that stones arranged not only for structure, but for sound, humming with harmonics that could amplify rituals or induce altered states of consciousness. Could the myths of enlightenment be grounded in acoustic engineering, knowledge of resonance and energy now long lost? Skeptics argue that such claims are exaggerated or that spiritual traditions grew up around the site after it was abandoned. Yet even they cannot explain why myths of flood, enlightenment, and divine construction align so perfectly with the archaeology and geology of the region. Why is it that in every corner of the world, flood legends persist? Why do mountains and pyramids, whether in Indonesia, Egypt, or Mesoamerica, become centers of spirituality and survival? Is this simply human imagination, or could it reflect a forgotten chapter of our shared history? For the Sundanese, Gunung Padang is not a relic, it is alive, a breathing monument of stone and spirit. Its myths are not fables, but guides telling of survival in times of catastrophe, of wisdom sought when the world collapsed, of energies harnessed to heal and enlighten. And whether one views these traditions as metaphor or memory, they invite a haunting question. Did our ancestors know something we have forgotten? Were they custodians of knowledge lost to time? And are we only now beginning to hear their voices? Again, carried on the wind and whispered through stone, the story of Gunung Padang does not only belong to myth. In the early 20th century, during the height of Dutch colonial rule in Indonesia, the site caught the attention of European explorers. In 1914, a Dutch historian and archaeologist named Nicholas Johannes Krom visited West Java, intrigued by rumors of strange stone terraces hidden deep in the jungle. What he found astonished him. Massive basalt columns arranged in terraces across the hillside, resembling no natural formation he had ever seen. To the Sundanese villagers, this was the sacred mountain of enlightenment, a place of legends. But to Krom, it was an archaeological puzzle, one that he ultimately downplayed in his official reports. Krom described Gunung Padang as a megalithic site, but nothing more than a product of relatively recent prehistoric cultures. He cataloged the stones, the terraces, and the alignments, but treated the indigenous myths with skepticism, dismissing them as folklore rather than history. His conclusions suggested that the site was perhaps a few thousand years old, a minor curiosity compared to the grandeur of European monuments or the temples of Angkor in nearby Cambodia. Why would a scholar so meticulous underplay the significance of such a site? Some argue it was a matter of worldview. At the time, European colonial powers often viewed Asian societies as primitive or derivative, incapable of great achievements on their own. A site like Gunung Padang, if truly ancient and advanced, would have appended that narrative. To admit that Indonesia might host a pyramid older than any in Egypt could empower nationalist movements already simmering under colonial rule. And so, whether consciously or unconsciously, Crumb's framing minimized Gunung Padang's potential importance, but whispers persisted. Locals continued their pilgrimages, leaving offerings, telling stories of divine kings and unfinished palaces. And though the Dutch reports were filed away, the site lived on in cultural memory. Was this deliberate suppression an effort to keep inconvenient discoveries quiet? Or was it simply the blindness of an era unwilling to imagine non-Western civilizations as advanced? Whatever the case, the colonial encounter marked the first time Gunung Padang entered the written record that obscured more than it revealed. For decades, Gunung Padang slumbered under vines and moss, known only to locals and ignored by the outside world. But in 1979, fate intervened. 3 farmers working the land stumbled across exposed stone terraces, their geometric alignments too precise to ignore. They alerted authorities, and soon the Indonesian Bureau of Archaeology dispatched teams to investigate. What they found reignited interest in a site long forgotten by colonial scholars. Archaeologists uncovered more than 400 basalt columns arranged across 5 terraces, covering thousands of square meters. The scale was unlike anything previously recorded in Indonesia. The discovery shocked the academic community, which had largely dismissed Gunung Padang as a minor curiosity. Now it was clear that the site was monumental, demanding serious study. The rediscovery resonated with local myths. Villagers who had long honored the site as sacred saw the farmers' find as confirmation of their ancestors' stories. King Siliwangi's unfinished palace, the mountain of enlightenment, the refuge from floods. Suddenly, these tales seemed less like folklore and more like veiled history. Pilgrims returned in greater numbers, offerings multiplied, and the site once again became a living center of culture and spirituality. Yet even in this moment of revelation, skepticism lingered. Early dating suggested the site was only a few thousand years old, neatly fitting into accepted timelines. But as researchers probed deeper in later decades, evidence began to emerge of much older layers, perhaps tens of thousands of years old. The rediscovery of 1979 was thus only the beginning of a saga that continues to this day, a saga of controversy, suppression, and tantalizing hints of a forgotten civilization. And so, what began as the chance find of a few farmers has blossomed into one of archaeology's fiercest debates. Was Gunung Padang a simple megalithic site built by Iron Age societies? Or is it the remnant of something far more profound, a pyramid 28,000 years old, carrying within it the whispers of a world long lost to flood and fire? At first glance, Gunung Padang might appear to be nothing more than a hill rising gently above the misty valleys of West Java. Its slopes are green with vegetation, its summit crowned with clusters of stone. Yet when you step closer, when your eyes trace the shapes hidden within the landscape, the illusion dissolves. The hill is not natural. It is a construction layer upon layer of terraces built with precision, arranged as if to defy time itself. The structure consists of 5 main terraces, each rising above the next in a stepped formation that locals have long called a pundan, Burundak. This design, a sacred stepped terrace, is one of the oldest architectural forms in Indonesia, predating Hindu and Buddhist temples by millennia. To the Sundanese people, it represents a ladder between the human world and the divine, a way of ascending not just physically but spiritually. Standing upon the terraces, one cannot help but feel the weight of countless footsteps, pilgrims who climbed these stones in search of enlightenment, guidance, or communion with their ancestors. The stones themselves are striking. They are basalt columns, natural in their hexagonal shape, but clearly placed by human hands. Arranged in patterns that suggest intentionality, these blocks weigh hundreds of kilograms each. Some are set upright, others laid flat, forming walls, paths, and boundaries. The level of organization is undeniable. Random geology cannot explain the terrace's symmetry, nor the way the stones fit into carefully delineated boundaries. From above, the layout reveals a geometric harmony, each terrace proportioned to the next, creating an ascending staircase of megalithic platforms. One of the most astonishing aspects is the scale. The upper terraces alone cover thousands of square meters, but as excavations and surveys have shown, the structure extends far deeper and wider than initially believed. The hill is not simply capped with terraces. It may be entirely artificial, a massive pyramid disguised by earth and time. If true, Gunung Padang is not just the largest megalithic site in Indonesia, it is one of the largest in the world. Walking across the terraces, visitors often describe a strange sensation. The stones seem to hum underfoot, vibrating faintly. When struck, locals have long believed that these stones are alive, imbued with spirit or energy. Modern researchers have measured their acoustic properties, finding that some columns resonate at precise frequencies. This suggests that the builders may have understood sound in ways we are only beginning to rediscover, arranging the stones, not just for form but for function, turning the terraces into instruments of resonance, amplifying chants, prayers, or rituals. The terraces also reveal a deep alignment with cultural tradition. Across Indonesia, Pandan Berondak structures served as precursors to temples like Borobudur. They embodied the belief that humans could ascend spiritually through stages, each level bringing them closer to the divine. Gunung Padang, with its 5 great terraces, appears to be the prototype, the mother of all later sacred architecture in the archipelago. But unlike later temples, which can be securely dated to historical kingdoms, Gunung Padang exists in a twilight zone of prehistory. Its age remains contested, its origins cloaked in mystery. What cannot be denied is the craftsmanship. Moving and arranging basalt columns of such size would have required immense effort, coordination, and knowledge. The stones had to be quarried, transported, and set in place with remarkable precision. Some terraces are supported by retaining walls of fitted stone, while others are lined with pathways, creating a complex system of movement across the structure. This was no random effort, it was architecture, intentional and sophisticated. Mainstream archaeologists argue that the terraces are only a few thousand years old, created by Iron Age societies using simple tools. But the layout's sophistication raises questions. How did such small-scale communities manage projects of this scale? Why does the design echo sacred patterns found across the world, from Mesoamerican pyramids to Mesopotamian ziggurats? Is this convergence coincidence, or does it hint at a shared legacy, a blueprint of sacred architecture stretching back to an age we have forgotten? As you stand on the upper terrace and look down across the valley, the enormity of Gunung Padang becomes clear. This is not just a hill, it is a monument. Its terraces are not random, they are deliberate stages designed to lift humans closer to the heavens. And its stones are not silent, they speak, humming with the echoes of a civilization that may have existed long before history as we know it began. For decades, Gunung Padang was seen as nothing more than a megalithic terrace crowning a hill. A sacred site, yes, but limited in scope. That perception changed dramatically in the 21st century when modern science was brought to bear on this ancient enigma. Using ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, and core drilling, researchers began peeling back the layers of the earth literally. And what they uncovered was astonishing. Gunung Padang was not just a surface monument, but a colossal structure hiding chambers, cavities, and construction phases that stretched far back into time. The first hints came from ground-penetrating radar, GPR, surveys, which revealed anomalies beneath the terraces. Instead of a simple geological hill, the scans showed distinct layers of construction, some stretching more than 30 meters deep. These layers appeared as geometric patterns, suggestive of walls, voids, and chambers buried under soil and vegetation. In some areas, researchers identified rectangular cavities that could be man-made rooms, sealed for millennia. This was a revelation. If true, it meant that Gunung Padang was not a hill with stones on top. It was a pyramid disguised as a hill. Seismic tomography added further intrigue. By sending waves through the subsurface and measuring their reflections, scientists could map density differences within the structure. The results showed hollow spaces, tunnels, and chamber-like voids beneath the terraces. These anomalies aligned with the theory that Gunung Padang had been deliberately constructed in stages, each new layer covering the old, creating a massive stepped pyramid that was later hidden by earth and time. Imagine that, chambers potentially, untouched for tens of thousands of years, waiting beneath our feet. In addition to imaging techniques, core drilling provided physical samples of the deeper layers. These cores revealed evidence of stonework far below the surface terraces, suggesting that the construction extended vertically as well as horizontally. Some of the material extracted appeared to be andesite rock arranged in unnatural patterns, bound with a kind of ancient cement. If confirmed, this would imply that advanced techniques were used cement mixtures long before such technology was supposed to exist. One of the most controversial findings came from analyses of the site's acoustic and electromagnetic properties. Researchers observed that certain chambers and stone arrangements amplified natural electromagnetic fields. Some suggested this could indicate intentional design, a way of harnessing earth energies. Skeptics dismissed such claims as pseudoscience, but the data showed measurable anomalies nonetheless. The stones themselves resonated like tuning forks when struck, producing frequencies that could travel through the terraces. Was this coincidence or evidence of ancient knowledge about resonance and energy? Mainstream geologists counter that the anomalies might simply be natural. Basalt columns can form naturally through volcanic processes, and cavities underground could result from erosion or lava tubes. But critics of the mainstream point out that the patterns observed are too regular, too geometric to be random. Nature does not align voids into rectangular chambers or create terraces that mirror sacred step pyramid forms across cultures. The debate rages on. But one fact is undeniable. The scans revealed something unexpected, something that challenged conventional explanations. These discoveries reignited global interest. Could Gunung Padang be humanity's oldest pyramid hidden beneath layers of earth for tens of thousands of years? And if chambers truly exist within, what lies inside them? Artifacts, inscriptions, or evidence of a forgotten civilization? The implications are staggering. If confirmed, Gunung Padang would push back the timeline of advanced human construction by more than 20,000 years, rewriting not only Indonesian history but the story of civilization itself. Perhaps the most tantalizing element is what remains unexplored. Despite the scans showing clear anomalies, excavation has been limited, often stalled by bureaucratic hurdles and scientific controversy. Some accuse the academic establishment of deliberately slowing progress, fearful of what confirmation might mean for established timelines. Others argue for caution to protect the site from reckless intrusion. But the chambers remain sealed, their secrets intact, waiting. The scans transformed Gunung Padang from an archaeological curiosity into one of the most important and most contested sites on Earth. They revealed a structure far more complex than anyone imagined, a hidden architecture beneath the terraces. They posed questions that cut to the heart of human history. Who built this place, when, and how? And most haunting of all, why has it been buried, hidden beneath time, waiting for us to find it only now? If the terraces and geophysical scans shook the foundations of archaeology, it was the radiocarbon dating results that ignited outright controversy. The dates pulled from the soil and organic material at Gunung Padang did not just stretch our understanding of Indonesian history, they threatened to overturn the entire chronology of human civilization. When core drilling began at the site, researchers extracted organic materials trapped within the deeper layers of construction. Charcoal fragments, soil samples, and plant remains were analyzed using radiocarbon dating, the gold standard for determining age in archaeology. What they found was staggering. While surface terraces showed ages consistent with late prehistory, perhaps 2,000 to 4,000 years old, deeper layers told a very different story. Some samples returned dates of 9,000 to 13,000 years before present. Still deeper material extracted from 30 meters below the surface yielded dates of 24,000 to 28,000 years old. If these results are accurate, Gunung Padang predates the rise of agriculture, the invention of writing, even the supposed beginnings of civilization itself. To put this into perspective, the Great Pyramids of Egypt are roughly 4,500 years old. Stonehenge, about 5,000 years. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, one of the oldest known megalithic sites, is around 11,500 years. Gunung Padang would not just precede them all, it would more than double the age of humanity's first great monuments. The implications are profound. If a pyramid-like structure was being constructed in Indonesia 28,000 years ago, it means advanced societies existed during the last ice age, long before mainstream history acknowledges the possibility. It suggests that humans had the organization, engineering, and symbolic culture required to build massive monuments while much of the planet was still locked in glaciers. This idea challenges the very foundations of archaeology and anthropology, which hold that complex societies only emerged after the Ice Age ended around 12,000 years ago. Unsurprisingly, the findings were met with fierce resistance. Many mainstream archaeologists dismissed the older dates outright, arguing that the samples must have been contaminated or misinterpreted. They claimed the deeper layers were natural geological formations, not man-made constructions, and that the organic material might have seeped down from later periods. Others argued that while the site itself may be ancient, its construction could not possibly be so old. Perhaps the radiocarbon dates reflect natural events, not human activity, but supporters of the ancient dating counter with several points. First, the dates were not isolated. They came from multiple depths and consistent layers, suggesting intentional construction phases rather than random contamination. Second, the geophysical scans align with the idea of artificial layers extending deep into the hill. And third, local myths and global parallels both point to the possibility of a forgotten age of builders, erased from history by floods and cataclysm. Could Gunung Padang be the first hard evidence of such a lost civilization? The debate has become almost political. Some Indonesian researchers argue that international academia is reluctant to accept the site's significance because it would force a rewriting of human history centered not in Mesopotamia or Egypt, but in Southeast Asia. They accuse skeptics of clinging to old paradigms, unwilling to admit that the story of civilization is far older and more global than textbooks allow. On the other side, critics accuse proponents of sensationalism, of exaggerating findings to attract attention and funding. Between them lies a tension that has stalled full excavation, leaving Gunung Padang suspended in uncertainty. Yet the controversy itself reveals something important. Even the possibility that the site is 28,000 years old forces us to ask, what if our understanding of history is incomplete? What if civilizations rose and fell long before the ones we know? The mainstream insists on caution, but history shows use that paradigm's shift slowly. Göbekli Tepe was once dismissed as impossible too, until it was excavated, forcing a rewrite of the Neolithic timeline. Could Gunung Padang be another such paradigm-shifting discovery, waiting for us to recognize its true age? For now, the dates stand as a riddle. Some see them as evidence of Ice Age builders, the first pyramid makers of Earth. Others see them as errors, anomalies that will eventually be explained away. But the numbers are there, etched into the carbon of ancient fragments, whispering of a time when humans may have been far more advanced than we ever imagined. And until the chambers beneath the terraces are fully opened, until the evidence is undeniable, the controversy will remain a battle, not just over stones and soil, but over the story of who we are. When you stand at the summit of Gunung Padang, the terraces at your feet, the sweeping valleys stretching out before you, it is difficult to comprehend the sheer scale of what lies beneath. Most visitors see only the top, a crown of basalt stones arranged in terraces. But modern surveys have revealed that the visible site is just the tip of something far larger, an iceberg of stone and earth that could rival the greatest monuments of antiquity. If the scans and core drillings are correct, Gunung Padang is not a hill with stones on top. It is a pyramid that encompasses the hill itself, making it potentially the largest pyramid in the world. To put this into perspective, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands at 146 meters tall and covers 13 acres at its base. Gunung Padang, by contrast, rises 100 meters above the surrounding valley, but its footprint spans more than 25 hectares over 60 acres. That is nearly 5 times the size of Giza's base. While the Egyptian pyramids impress with height and precision, Gunung Padang's magnitude lies in its mass and breadth. It is less a singular tower of stone and more an entire mountain transformed into a monument. The implications are staggering. If this is truly a man-made pyramid, it suggests that an Ice Age society in Southeast Asia mobilized resources on a scale comparable to the greatest civilizations of recorded history. Such an achievement would require advanced organization, knowledge of engineering, and a social structure capable of sustaining long-term construction projects. In other words, Gunung Padang implies that civilization, as we define it, urban centers, monumental architecture, specialized labor, may have existed tens of thousands of years earlier than currently accepted. Skeptics argue that the scale is precisely why Gunung Padang cannot be man-made. To them, the idea of Ice Age peoples moving millions of tons of stone is absurd. They contend that the hill is mostly natural geology, with only the surface terraces arranged by humans. But this dismissal avoids the question, why then do scans show artificial layers descending 30 meters into the earth? Why do the terraces align with sacred geometry found across cultures? Why do local myths describe it as a palace built by a divine king? The sheer size also raises another possibility, that Gunung Padang was not built all at once, but in stages over thousands of years. Perhaps it began as a sacred terrace, then was expanded by successive generations, each adding new layers, burying the old beneath fresh stone. If so, the monument becomes not a single construction project, but a living testament to human endurance, faith, and memory. Its vastness would be the product of continuity, a sacred duty passed down through the ages, long before the written word. There are also profound symbolic implications. Across the world, ancient cultures built pyramids, ziggurats, and stepped mounds. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from Egypt to Cambodia, the pyramid form emerges again and again. Gunung Padang fits within this global tradition, yet it may be the oldest of them all. Could it be that pyramid building was not an isolated invention, but a legacy of a much older global civilization, scattered by floods and cataclysm, yet remembered through architecture? Gunung Padang's scale suggests it was not just a local shrine, but a center of something much larger, a hub of spiritual or even technological importance. Some researchers go further, speculating that the sheer mass of the pyramid may have been deliberate, intended to anchor energy or withstand cataclysm. Its terraces may not only represent steps to the heavens, but structural reinforcements designed to survive earthquakes, floods, or even cosmic impacts. If true, then Gunung Padang was more than a temple. It was a fortress of knowledge, a time capsule built to endure when all else fell. For humanity today, the size of Gunung Padang forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. If people could build something of this magnitude 28,000 years ago, why does our record of civilization begin only 6,000 years ago? What happened in the long gap between? Did a cataclysm erase entire chapters of human achievement, leaving only scattered survivors who later rebuilt from memory? Or have we simply underestimated the ingenuity of our ancestors, imagining them as primitive when in fact they were capable of feats equal to our own? The terraces of Gunung Padang rise quietly from the earth, but their implications roar across time. If this is truly the world's oldest and largest pyramid, then our understanding of history is not just incomplete, it is inverted. What we call the dawn of civilization may only be its rebirth, and what we think of as ancient may be but a shadow of a far older world. Gunung Padang stands as both monument and question, a mountain-shaped riddle that challenges everything we thought we knew about who we are and how long we have been here. Every great mystery needs a champion, someone willing to risk reputation and career to chase the truth. For Gunung Padang, that figure emerged not from archaeology, but from geology. Dr. Danny Hilman-Nedawija, a soft-spoken Indonesian geologist trained in the United States, was the unlikely hero who stepped into the storm. His story is not just about stones and dates, but about courage, controversy, and the battle between curiosity and conformity. At first, Danny was no crusader. He was a mainstream scientist working in seismology and tectonics. But when he encountered Gunung Padang in the early 2000s, something shifted. He saw in its terraces not just scattered stones, but the hints of an artificial design far older than anyone imagined. Where others saw a hill capped with ruins, Danny suspected something far deeper, a pyramid buried in time. That suspicion would ignite a decades-long struggle that defined his career. Armed with modern tools, Danny began to probe beneath the surface. He used ground-penetrating radar, GPR, sending electromagnetic waves through the earth to reveal hidden structures. What came back was startling. Regular patterns, cavities, and alignments that looked anything but natural. Seismic tomography, another technique, painted a picture of layered construction, terraces atop chambers, atop even deeper voids. Core drilling confirmed that beneath the soil were stacked arrangements of stone, deliberately placed, not chaotic. Each test seemed to confirm the same shocking possibility, that Gunung Padang was not a hill with ruins, but a pyramid with a crown. Danny's findings grew bolder. Radiocarbon dating of organic material extracted from deep cores yielded dates that defied orthodoxy, as old as 28,000 years. If true, this meant Gunung Padang predated Stonehenge by 20 millennia, predating the pyramids of Egypt by nearly twice that. It placed advanced stone construction not in the Holocene, when civilization was thought to begin, but back in the Ice Age, when humans were supposedly mere hunter-gatherers. To Danny, this was revolutionary. To his critics, it was heresy. The backlash was swift. Mainstream archaeologists dismissed his results as contaminated, misinterpreted, or outright wrong. The idea of a 28,000-year-old pyramid was not simply controversial, it was unacceptable. Journals rejected his papers. Conferences sidelined him. Colleagues whispered that he had strayed from science into pseudo-archaeology. But Danny refused to retreat. He believed the evidence was too strong. the anomalies too consistent, the myths too aligned with the data to ignore. In 2023, he finally published a paper that laid out the case. Gunung Padang was not a natural hill, but a step pyramid, built in stages across thousands of years, with the deepest layers dating to 25,000 BCE. The paper made headlines worldwide, celebrated by alternative historians and enthusiasts who had long suspected that human history was older than textbooks admitted. But in the halls of academia, it sparked outrage. Within a year, the journal retracted the study, citing methodological flaws and insufficient peer review. To Danny's supporters, this was not science correcting error, but censorship, academic gatekeeping designed to protect orthodoxy. The controversy soon expanded beyond academia into politics. The Indonesian government, intrigued by the possibility of a world-shattering discovery on its soil, briefly supported Danny's excavations. Funding was approved, and teams began digging again. But just as quickly, the project was halted. Bureaucratic resistance, political rivalries, and pressure from international academics all played a part. The site was sealed, work suspended, and Danny found himself at the center of a storm that was no longer just about stones, but about power. To some, he became a hero, the scientist willing to challenge dogma, the geologist turned warrior for truth. To others, he was a cautionary tale, a man who let ambition overtake rigor, whose claims threatened to blur the line between science and speculation. Yet even his critics could not ignore the passion that drove him, nor the data that refused to disappear. The scans, the cores, the anomalies remained, like voices calling from beneath the earth, daring others to look again. What makes Danny's journey compelling is not only the data he gathered, but the struggle he endured. In many ways, his story mirrors the myths of Gunung Padang itself, a mountain of knowledge buried by time, resisted by authority, but never fully silenced. Like the Sundanese kings of legend, he sought to build something grand, only to find his work interrupted. Yet the unfinished palace still stands, waiting for future generations to continue. Today, the debate rages on. Was Danny right, or was he mistaken? Is Gunung Padang a world-altering discovery, or an archaeological mirage? The answers remain hidden beneath stone and soil, sealed not only by geology, but by politics and pride. But one truth is clear: without Danny, Gunung Padang would still be dismissed as just a hill. It was his vision, his courage, and his refusal to bow to orthodoxy that reopened the mystery. And so his journey is more than the story of a scientist. It is the story of a man who dared to ask forbidden questions, who challenged the establishment, who fought not only against stone and time, but against the guardians of history themselves. Whether hero or heretic, Danny Hillman ensured that Gunung Padang would never be forgotten again. Beneath the terraces of Gunung Padang, the earth whispers of secrets yet unrevealed. To the untrained eye, it is only a hill, its slopes capped by ancient stone. But modern instruments tell a different story. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, and electrical resistivity scans have mapped what lies below, and the images are startling. Voids, cavities, tunnels, and chambers stacked beneath the terraces. These are not the random hollows of nature. They form patterns, alignments, and shapes that hint at intention. It is as though the hill is not solid at all, but a shell built to conceal what rests within. The largest anomalies lie deep beneath. The visible terraces. Geophysical surveys suggest vast cavities, some as large as ballrooms, sealed within layers of rock and constructed stone. In certain scans, the outlines of rectangular chambers appear with eerie clarity, their proportions too regular to be chance. For researchers, these voids are a tantalizing puzzle. If they are natural, they are geologic oddities. But if they are artificial, then they may represent something extraordinary, hidden halls preserved for tens of thousands of years. Local myths have long spoken of treasures buried within the mountain, not gold or jewels, but knowledge. Elders tell of sacred chambers holding the wisdom of kings, relics of divine builders, or even technologies from an age before history. To skeptics, such stories are fantasy. Yet the scans bring these myths into sharper focus. What if the legends were not allegory but memory? What if the chambers of Gunung Padang are vaults of a forgotten world? Adding to the mystery are the energetic properties of the site. Visitors often report strange sensations, tingling skin, lightheadedness, a sense of vibration in the stones. Instruments have recorded anomalous electromagnetic readings across the terraces. Some researchers claim the basalt columns themselves resonate like tuning forks when struck, producing frequencies that echo unnaturally. Others suggest the entire site acts as a kind of energy capacitor, designed to store and channel forces we barely understand. These claims may sound outlandish, but they are not unique. Across the world, ancient monuments are linked with unusual energy phenomena. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its precise geometry, has been shown to concentrate electromagnetic fields. Stonehenge has acoustic properties that amplify sound in peculiar ways. Temples in South America are aligned with telluric currents, flows of energy through the earth. Could Gunung Padang belong to the same mysterious network, a global tradition of structures that harness natural forces for spiritual or practical purposes? The implications are staggering. If Gunung Padang's chambers contain artifacts, records, or devices, they could upend our understanding of human history. Imagine tablets inscribed with a language older than Sumer, or tools that demonstrate technologies far beyond the supposed reach of Ice Age cultures. Imagine evidence that ancient builders were not primitive, but advanced in ways we cannot yet comprehend. For some, this is the true reason why excavations stall and findings vanish into obscurity. The establishment, they argue, fears what might be revealed. Indeed, the political struggles around the site fuel these suspicions. Excavations that begin with fanfare are halted without explanation. Reports of chambers leak into the media, only to be denied or downplayed by officials. Scientists who propose bold interpretations find their work censored or retracted. To believers, this is not coincidence but control, a global effort to suppress the truth of our origins, to keep humanity's forgotten history locked away. Yet, even without excavation, the aura of Gunung Padang grows. Spiritual seekers climb its terraces in search of enlightenment. Mystics describe the site as a portal, a place where dimensions thin, where the earth itself breathes wisdom. To them, the energy is not a scientific anomaly, but a sacred pulse, proof that the ancients built more than stone. They built conduits between worlds. The chambers below, they say, may hold not treasure, but a kind of initiation, a passage to deeper understanding. And still the mountain waits. The scans remain, the anomalies persist, the myths endure. What lies sealed beneath those terraces? Is it empty space, carved by water and time? Or is it a library of the ancients, a cache of knowledge left behind for us to discover? Could the voids hold machines, maps, or records of civilizations lost to flood and fire? Or could they contain something even more profound, a message from the deep past, meant for us now in this age of rediscovery? Gunung Padang's hidden chambers embody the essence of the mystery. They are both presence and absence, proof and promise, myth and measurement. They invite us to imagine a world where pyramids rose not in Egypt, but in the mists of the ice age, where knowledge was preserved in stone long before history began. And until the earth yields its secrets, they remain the heart of the enigma, a silent challenge buried beneath a hill in Indonesia, daring us to look deeper. When most people think of pyramids, they picture the monumental structures rising from the sands of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, built around 2500 BCE, has long been considered the pinnacle of ancient engineering. Yet the hill of Gunung Padang in Indonesia seems to whisper a challenge to this narrative. Its terraces, chambers, and possible pyramidal shape suggest that pyramid building may not have been an isolated Egyptian achievement, but part of a much deeper global tradition. Though smaller in scale, Gunung Padang shares striking parallels with Giza. Both sites employ massive stone blocks, meticulously cut and placed with precision. Both incorporate astronomical alignments, Giza with the stars of Orion's belt, Gunung Padang with the cardinal directions and local celestial markers, and both conceal mysteries beneath their visible structures. Just as scans of the Great Pyramid have revealed hidden voids, so too do surveys of Gunung Padang point to secret chambers sealed beneath the terraces. Perhaps most provocative is the question of age. If Gunung Padang truly dates back 28,000 years, it would predate the Egyptian pyramids by over 20 millennia. This would suggest that pyramid construction was not the invention of dynastic Egypt, but the echo of a much older knowledge, a blueprint inherited rather than created. Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss this idea, but the parallels cannot be ignored. Why do cultures separated by oceans and millennia converge on the same form, the pyramid, as their ultimate architectural expression? Is it coincidence or the footprint of a shared origin now lost to time? For believers in hidden history, Gunung Padang may be the missing link. If a pyramid existed in Indonesia during the Ice Age, it points to a civilization with both the will and the means to shape the earth itself. The Egyptians may have carried forward this tradition, perfecting the form, but the seed may have been planted far earlier, in a forgotten world where Gunung Padang was one of many. On the other side of the world, buried beneath a hill in southeastern Turkey, lies another site that shook the foundations of history, Göbekli Tepe. Discovered in the 1990s, this vast complex of megalithic pillars has been dated to around 9600 BCE, thousands of years before Stonehenge or the pyramids of Egypt. Like Gunung Padang, it forced scholars to confront an uncomfortable truth. Hunter-gatherers of the Ice Age may have been far more sophisticated than once believed. The parallels between Göbekli Tepe and Gunung Padang are striking. Both sites were concealed beneath hills preserved for millennia until modern science revealed their secrets. Both use massive stone blocks arranged in deliberate patterns, aligned with celestial markers. Both appear not as isolated shrines, but as monumental centers of ritual and community, suggesting complex social organization long before the supposed dawn of civilization. What makes Göbekli Tepe particularly relevant is its challenge to the old model of history. For decades, scholars assumed that agriculture came first, then cities, then temples. But Göbekli Tepe reversed that logic. It was a temple built before farming, proof that spiritual vision could spark monumental construction. Even in a world of hunters and gatherers, Gunung Padang pushes the envelope even further, suggesting that not only temples but pyramids may have risen in the Ice Age. Together, these sites sketch the outline of a forgotten past. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Gunung Padang in Indonesia, separated by continents, yet both hinting at a global culture of megalithic builders who flourished at the edge of the Ice Age. Were these cultures connected, sharing ideas across vast distances? Or were they independent expressions of the same impulse, evidence of a universal human memory of catastrophe and rebirth? Either way, they suggest that the story of civilization is far older and far stranger than the textbooks admit. Across the Atlantic, in the jungles of Mexico and Guatemala, another tradition of pyramid building rose. The stepped pyramids of the Maya, Aztec, and earlier Olmec civilizations. These structures, like Teotihuacan's Pyramid of the Sun, mirror Gunung Padang's terraced design, built in layers rising step by step toward the heavens. They serve not as tombs, but as sacred platforms connecting the earth to the cosmos. The resemblance to Gunung Padang is uncanny. Both use terraces carved into hills or constructed from stone, each level serving as a stage for ritual. Both align with celestial cycles, marking solstices and equinoxes, and both are linked to myths of gods descending from the sky, bringing wisdom and order to humankind. The pyramid, in both Indonesia and Mesoamerica, was not merely an architectural form. It was a cosmic symbol, a bridge between worlds. Even the acoustics resonate across cultures. At Chichen Itza in Mexico, clapping before the temple of Kukulkan produces an echo that mimics the cry of a sacred bird. At Gunung Padang, basalt columns resonate when struck, producing tones that reverberate through the terraces. These effects suggest that sound and vibration were not accidents, but integral to the design, a way of engaging with energies invisible to the eye but felt in the body. The parallels raise profound questions. Did the pyramid builders of Indonesia and Mesoamerica inherit a shared legacy, a memory of a primordial architecture carried across oceans? Or did they, separated by time and space, arrive independently at the same form because the pyramid is universal, the simplest, most stable way to reach toward the sky? Either answer points to a deeper mystery. Why do pyramids from Indonesia to Mexico to Egypt remain the enduring monuments of lost civilizations? Perhaps the most compelling link between Gunung Padang and other ancient sites is not architectural, but mythological. Across the world, cultures preserve stories of a great flood, a cataclysm that destroyed an earlier age of humanity. From the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, from Native American legends to the Sundanese myths of Java, the theme recurs: A world drowned, survivors carrying fragments of lost knowledge. A new age rising from the ruins. Gunung Padang sits squarely within this mythic landscape. Local traditions speak of divine kings, sacred palaces, and enlightenment brought by higher powers. Echoes of a golden age destroyed in cataclysm. Geologists note that around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, the world experienced dramatic sea level rise and floods triggered by melting glaciers. If a civilization had flourished in that time, much of it would now lie beneath the oceans, leaving only scattered mountain sites like Gunung Padang as survivors. This is where the legend of Atlantis enters the conversation. First described by Plato, Atlantis was said to be a great civilization destroyed in a single night of floods and fire. Mainstream scholars dismiss it as allegory, but to alternative historians, sites like Gunung Padang are evidence that Plato's tale may be memory, not myth. If pyramids existed in Indonesia 28,000 years ago, then the flood myths are not fables, but history. The echoes of a world lost to water. The flood connection explains more than myth. It explains suppression. To admit Gunung Padang is real would mean admitting that civilizations rise and fall, that humanity has forgotten entire epochs of its past. It would mean acknowledging that we are not the pinnacle of human history, but one more cycle in a story far older and more fragile than we dare believe. Taken together, the connections between Gunung Padang, Egypt, Göbekli Tepe, Mesoamerican pyramids, and global flood myths point to a startling possibility: that human civilization is not a linear march from primitive to advanced, but a cycle of rise, catastrophe, and rebirth. The pyramid rising from stone and soil is the marker of that cycle, a symbol left by cultures who knew their time would one day end. Gunung Padang may be the oldest of them all, a survivor of an age so ancient it borders on myth. And if its chambers are ever opened, if its secrets are ever revealed, it could become the missing piece that connects the fragments of a forgotten world, a world where pyramids rose before history began, and where the memory of catastrophe still lingers in myth and stone. So here we stand at the edge of mystery. A hill in Indonesia that may not be a hill at all, but a pyramid older than time itself. Beneath its terraces, the chambers remain sealed, the energy still pulsing, the questions still unanswered. Could this truly be the proof that humanity rose, fell, and rebuilt long before our history books admit? Or is it simply another riddle, carved into stone, daring us to search deeper? The implications ripple outward like waves. If Gunung Padang is genuine, then everything we thought we knew about the timeline of civilization collapses. It would mean the ancients were not only builders of monuments, but custodians of wisdom lost in the flood, whispers of an age when knowledge reached heights we can scarcely imagine. And if those chambers are ever opened, what truths will we find waiting inside? I'm your history teller, and you're watching Sleeping Historian. If you love these deep dives into the forbidden past, where archaeology meets myth and history collides with mystery, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss the next revelation. We've only just begun to scratch the surface. Now, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Do you believe Gunung Padang is a true pyramid, a relic of a lost civilization? Or do you think the establishment is right to doubt it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The best part of this channel is hearing your perspectives and building this community of seekers together. Because in the end, the story of Gunung Padang isn't just about stones, dates, or chambers. It's about us, about how we question, how we search, and how we piece together the fragments of a past that refuses to stay buried. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and never stop looking beyond the surface. So, before you drift off tonight, still thinking about ancient pyramids and forgotten worlds, do me one favor. Subscribe, like, and share if you enjoy your bedtime deep dives into mystery. It helps this community grow, and it makes sure you don't miss the next revelation waiting. Just beyond the veil of history. Sweet dreams, seekers, and remember, the past is never really gone. It's just waiting to be uncovered.